Discover the mysterious origins and incredible survival tales of the indigenous people of Patagonia. Native people of this massive semi-arid region that spans 260,000 miles are living proof of the endurance of human life and spirit. Patagonia is huge. It spans about 640,000 miles of deserts, glaciers, mountains, and a major chunk of steppes, dry grasslands. My journey through Patagonia's difficult terrain got me interested in the original inhabitants of this unwelcoming landscape. They had lived here for thousands of years before European conquest and colonization. Who were these people? Why did they settle here? And how did they thrive in one of the world's harshest terrains? How did their populations diminish? What does their ability to survive on this land tell us about human nature? Find out in this video. Patagonia is home to various indigenous groups, including the Tehuelche, Mapuche, 𝐀𝐫𝐶𝐢𝐧𝐝, and 𝐀𝐫𝐶𝐢𝐧𝐝, amongst others. To understand their way of life, we need to grasp the geography of this region. Its landscape is diverse, ranging from vast plains and steppe regions to towering mountains and dense forests. Surviving here wasn't easy. How did they do it? The native people were hunter-gatherers and led nomadic lifestyle. They would move in search of food as the seasons changed. I found a good example of adaptations and survival of these tribes in the city of elcalafate. The original inhabitants of Patagonia did not live on the glaciers and mountain peaks. Most tribes inhabited the eastern and central region marked by grasslands and steppes. Besides hunting for meat, they would sustain themselves with teas and extracts from herbs that grew here, like the 𝐀𝐫𝐴𝐴 grass. The 𝐀𝐫𝐴𝐴 is really the shrub which you could really use and make mate, and then also use for other types of tea or other types of ointments, like something like a Vicks vapor rub. I will focus on the Tehuelche people in this video. I contacted a local company to take me for an experience of native lives, including a delicious dinner inside a cave.
Arvindsarin.
Yes. The Tehuelche, indigenous to Patagonia, lived here for over 14,000 years. Their traditions reflect their deep connection to the environment. All right, guys, so this is our first stop in this beautiful native people learning and cave experience with dinner. I think it's time for us to now go, so let's get going, and we're on to the next stop now. They primarily hunted Guanaco and rias using bolas and spears. They also gathered wild fruit, seeds, and roots. They crafted tools and weapons from stone, bone, and wood, and utilized animal hides for clothing, tents, and other essentials. As we hiked through the darkness in the same region where the native people once thrived, our first stop was learning about their housing and gender roles. We learned that men were primarily responsible for hunting and making tools. The women worked at home, making tents, making clothing from animal hide, bringing up children, and keeping the fire lit.
First of all, these tents are made of branches and we don't have any tree. So women has to walk from here is 50 kilometers. They can live 300 more kilometers. So they have to go for branches, build all the 𝐀𝐫𝐴𝐴, all the tent, tie in all the branches with Guanaco tendons, and they divided the 𝐀𝐫𝐴𝐴 in two parts, for living and sleeping. But they have to cover everything with Guanaco leathers. They needed about 35 up to 40 Guanaco leathers, but you have to sew them because the winds are very, very strong. And the orientation of the 𝐀𝐫𝐴𝐴 has to be west and east, so it would be in this sense. So the wind Do not blow away everything.
Guanaco was most important animal for survival of native people. These animals look like llamas or even deers, and they are native to South America. Commonly found in Patagonia, they are swift runners and reach up to 35 miles per hour when sprinting. This speed allows them to evade predators in their native habitats, which include open plains and mountainous areas. Their agility and speed were also the reasons why Tehuelche men developed hunting tools like bolas to effectively capture them. Bolas are traditional hunting weapons and consist of 2 or more weighted balls connected by a cord or leather thong. Men would throw the bolas at the target, typically aiming for the legs of an animal. When the bola was wrapped around the animal's leg, they entangled them, making the animal trip and fall. The Tehuelche buried their dead with simple ceremonies, with stones and grave goods such as personal belongings and hunting tools were included to the aid of the deceased in the afterlife, similar to the more luxurious burials given to Egyptian pharaohs. These interesting stories about Tehuelche took us to the cave art of this tribe.
Ahí ya tienen. Ahora, ¿qué tenemos acá? Hombres grandes, más chicos, manitos arriba.
The caves around elcalafate, particularly the nearby Cueva de las Manos, are famous for their prehistoric rock art. Although not solely created by the Tehuelche, these cave paintings reflect ancient artistic expressions with images of handprints, animals, and hunting scenes dating back thousands of years. These practices illustrate the Tehuelche adaptation to their environment, their social structures, and the spiritual beliefs that guided their daily lives. Some practices of the Tehuelche are similar to those of Selkmen and Yagan, the tribes that inhabited tierradelfuego. These are also hunter-gatherers, but they also depended on fishing. They used canoes and small boats to transport people and food on the rivers and ocean creeks.
Archaeological research shows that huts made by the natives had rather circular base and 3 to 4 meters in diameter. They were built out of crisscross branches to make structural dome, which was later covered with leafed branches with an axis not higher than 60 centimeters.
In Chile, with the Mapuche, a different social structure emerges. The Mapuche make about 10% of Chilean population. They were fierce warriors, so much so that Spanish colonizers could never get a hold of them for 20 years. Mapuche are a matrilineal society, and their women are expert wool weavers, a tradition that they still carry forward. You can detect the candor in conversations with Chilean people. Their frankness comes from Mapuche traditions. Once flourishing and managing to survive in the hardest climates, these native people of Patagonia suddenly began to diminish in large numbers from the middle of the 19th century. Some tribes went extinct while others barely managed to survive. What happened? How did these resilient people die? The answer lies in the expansion of colonialism in South America. How did they diminish? European contact brought diseases and territorial loss, resulting in a significant decline in the population and cultural assimilation of almost all local people. If it wasn't disease, it was mass murder by European ranchers, aided by the colonial masters. Despite this, traces of their traditional culture endure. Those that had thrived in these harsh conditions for thousands of years had suddenly fallen prey to foreign diseases that they didn't have immunity to fight. During the colonial era, indigenous people were even captured and exhibited in degrading human zoos to highlight perceived differences between European and indigenous cultures. This shameful practice reflects colonial attitudes that deemed indigenous people as primitive or exotic. It's a grim reminder of the importance of respecting human dignity and cultural diversity to prevent such injustices from reoccurring. By the onset of the 20th century, less than a quarter of these native people existed in Patagonia. Most lost their original languages. The Mapuche in Chile are an exception, as they have continued to protect their language and culture with determination. Many indigenous communities in Patagonia today are engaged in efforts to revitalize their languages, culture, and land rights. What do we learn about the human spirit? While the history of the indigenous people of Patagonia is marked by struggle and resilience, their cultural legacy remains significant. Both Argentina and Chile have museums about the histories of native people in cities, and local activists work to preserve their nature-friendly cultures. As these countries grow economically, the stories of the native people will find more exposure and bring a lesson of mutual respect for all cultures.